Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me for this segment, we have Tom Tovar, CEO of Appdome, to discuss CISO responsibilities and protecting mobile brands. Tom, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Yeah, Jill, thanks for having me back. Excited to be here.
You got it. Earlier this year, the SEC filed a complaint against SolarWinds and its CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, charging fraud and internal control failures for known cybersecurity risks and vulnerabilities. Tom, what were the key takeaways from this complaint?
Yeah, so the SEC focused on three areas of kind of inactivity and error. Public statements in the company's filings, the website. There was a security statement on SolarWinds' website touting its security policies, and something called an 8K, which is a filing when you have a material event. In this case, it was an actual cyber attack. So the SEC zeroed in and said, look, all of these things contain false and misleading statements that lead to fraud in the public markets and so forth. So the big takeaway, I think, is, if your brand touts cybersecurity as a key component of its value proposition, you need to make sure that your practices and internal controls measure up to those brand promises. You can't let them slip.
So what are the actions that CISOs at mobile brands, and I would probably argue most brands, should take to achieve brand promise?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think when you look at the complaint, the SEC zeroed in on several things that were going on at that time. So number one, that the public statements about the company's cybersecurity practices were, when you compared them to what was actually going on at the company, were very different. Publicly, the company was saying we follow the best security policies, we follow software development lifecycle practices, we pen test our applications, we follow NIST and other things. But internally, they had just not measured up to that. Now, internally as well, they were saying these are aspirational and we'll get there eventually, but externally they weren't saying that. So that's really what got them into trouble. But when you look at it, it really comes down to, did the cyber team have the ability to deliver on the brand promise of cybersecurity and cybersecurity controls? And as you read the complaint, it's clear they did not. The cybersecurity team was saying we're flagging more vulnerabilities than we're solving. We can't hire the people to solve these, in a reasonable period of time. We don't measure up. We're vulnerable. We're exploitable, etc. And so I think you've got to look at kind of how you're delivering security overall. You've got to put systems, tools, processes in place that allow you to measure up to those standards. Even if, Jill, your website doesn't have a giant security, statement on the website or whatnot, if your brand comes with that, you've got to make sure you have technologies that are going to deliver on those promises day in and day out. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself in trouble.
What are the top 5 action steps for all CISOs and cyber teams? What should they be taking?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think one of the things that really jumped out to me in the complaint was the fact that the SEC zeroed in on kind of what you would frame as kind of the normal DevSecOps process, where cyber teams will get a pen test or mobile application security test or what have you, develop findings and present those findings to the engineering organization to resolve. But it was clear in the complaint that what had happened is the number of findings and the number of vulnerabilities had outstripped the engineering's capability to deliver. So you can't find yourself in this situation where you're zeroing in on vulnerabilities, giving them to engineering, and engineering can't solve them. Well, the main things you've got to do is you've got to deploy technology that can fill those vulnerabilities independent of the engineering organization. In other words, you as the cyber team have to control the means of delivery of those protections. That's number one. Number two, you've got to evaluate your public disclosures about cybersecurity. If you just have generic statements out there about we follow great practices, but you don't mark them to the reality of where you are in that journey, you're going to have a problem. Number three, you need to do a brand audit. If your brand audit promises security, particularly your financial institution, if you're a retail organization, if you're a healthcare organization, et cetera, and part of your brand is promising safe and secure experiences for your mobile end users or whatnot, you need to take extra steps to make sure that you can document and prove that you're following, a proper duty of care in this mindset. So these are the things that you've got to do. One of the things, and this is amazing to me, is this notion of kind of fake it till you make it, which is, in Silicon Valley we talk about a lot, doesn't apply to cybersecurity. You can't put aspirational statements out publicly and say we're going to work to get there unless it's clear in those statements you're working to get there and you're not there. So you've got to make it, what your public statements are, got to match your reality, and you got to work really hard to control the means of delivery to get those things out the door.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You think that cyber just falls under the tech umbrella, but when you think about it, particularly the way that you laid it out, it's more of a risk function than, if it sounds like it's more of a risk function than anything else. So Tom, tell us where Appdome fits in this ecosystem. How are you working with companies to ensure, their cybersecurity management?
Yeah, thanks for that, Jill. I think we do several things. Number one, we allow cyber teams to control the means of delivery and deploy protections in mobile apps, zero dependency on the dev team, fully automated inside the DevOps lifecycle. So yay. But the other thing that we do is we provide a system of record as organizations are doing this, so that you can control what features are in a mobile application, so that if the SEC or anybody ever comes calling, you know exactly build by build, release by release, what's in that application, what's protecting it, what's protecting your users, your network, your brand, etc. This is very important for compliance, very important for cybersecurity committees of the board, etc. The third thing we offer is the ability to monitor those defenses and new attacks in real time. One of the challenges that happened to SolarWinds in the complaint was when they went through the what was known as the sunburst attack against their systems, which, by the way, Jill, came from a mobile device. They were unaware of its total impact, it's the magnitude of that attack. So Appdome also provides a monitoring capability where you can visualize not only the defenses working against attacks, but you can visualize new attacks that are coming against your mobile application so that you can respond. So these are the three things you need: delivery, you need a record to comply, and you need to monitor those things all in real time to stay true to what, Jill, you and I always, we always talk about and we want is safe and secure experiences when we're on these digital platforms.
All right, Tom, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Yep, thanks, Jill.